And welcome, Jack. How you doing today?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm good. You and I are kind of playing around a little bit before we started recording, but I am feeling more refreshed now that I've had a quick afternoon nap.
They're
I
they're gold.
Yeah, they really are. I don't know if you follow the Huberman Labs podcast, but he did one on naps once and talked about how that you really shouldn't go over like 25, 30 minutes, something like that, because anything longer than that, you might start getting even more tired whenever you wake up. And I have found that to be true. Well, I mean,
For,
what?
for the most part, I'm not familiar with the guy's podcast. I do remember an interview on Fresh Air years ago with a sleep specialist, and that was her claim as well. And
Uh-huh.
but by that point in time, and I had already been in the habit of short naps, and I was like, well, it's great. I've been doing the right thing this whole time. But yeah, 20 minutes is what I usually set my timer for most days, unless I
Yeah.
really feel like I need more.
But then you're going to come across some other expert that says, "Oh, well,
Eventually, yeah.
if you need to take naps during the day, then you probably have like a heart issue or dementia or something like that." And I'm like, fuck it, I don't care. I like the naps, so whatever it is, you know, I'm just going to live with it. So,
For
um,
what little time we have left, right?
yeah, yeah. What little time? I mean, I don't know. This
None of
comedian
us.
Mark Maron that I really like. He likes to joke about. I just don't know how much time I have left, and so
Yeah.
it's his way of judging on should I do this or not. And it's like I don't know. I don't know how much time I have left. So
I listened to a show a lot when I drove. Not so much anymore that I don't. I just don't listen to as much stuff anymore. But I did recently revisit his interview with Obama.
yeah,
Um,
that's a good
and
one.
that was, I mean, that was I think one of the best interviews I've ever heard at the time that I heard it. And I didn't even realize it happened. I heard it, like I heard it listening to the BBC. I think that interview is actually what got me into listening to him. Because like the news update, every half hour they give that 5 minute like world news briefing.
Uh-huh.
And the broadcaster was like, today on Mark Maron's podcast, President Obama said not being racist is more than not saying the N word in public. Except she actually said it. And like my jaw dropped as I was driving down the road. Like the most prim and proper British voice dropping the N word on worldwide broadcast radio. I was like, that's insane. I got to go listen to this interview and
Yeah,
understand like what context the president of the United States said that word himself on tape. And it was wild, man. It was wild to listen to it. Yeah, like, and then, gosh, like everything that came after,
yeah. If
that's come
memory
after.
serves, I think that episode was titled "The President is Here," and it was a big deal for him because he was like, "Holy shit!" I've got the
Yeah,
president,
big
in
deal for
my,
anyone
I
in my
think,
garage.
yeah, in my garage. Yeah, he was broadcasting from his garage at that time. So that would be pretty impressive. I mean, if I had any president in my basement, that would be interesting. I'd have to move a lot of things. So,
Yeah,
oh man, you said you did a lot of driving in the past.
yeah, yeah. That was that was the bread and butter for me for a really long time.
Yeah, like truck driving. Were
It was
you?
it did eventually end in trucking. I mean, it started as a teenager with like pizzas and auto parts,
Uh,
and then moved into trucking. For a while, was as a taxi driver, doing my own thing. But one way, shape, or form or another, my living has been made through driving. Uh, Even currently now,
yeah,
doing gig work, shopping and delivering groceries with Shipped. Like, it's still, using the car,
yeah.
still
It,
driving.
it's it's funny how you do what you can with your vehicle to make it as comfortable. I used to commute at least 45 minutes to an hour each way to work.
Mm,
And that was a time of podcast and audiobooks. And you do really learn to appreciate the ability to consume some information in a way that doesn't require you to use necessarily all your senses, because if you're reading a book, you're turning the page, you're using your eyes, you're trying to, maybe if you're like me, try not to get distracted by the things around you, and the only problem I have with listening while driving is that sometimes, how it is anytime you drive anywhere, that any kind of distance where especially if you've done it a million times, where you kind of zone out and then you like realize that, oh, I just drove 2 miles and I don't really remember driving the last 2 miles. And it can get that way with some of the material I try to consume. Like I'm reading an audiobook right now on the way to work, and I had to back it up 30 seconds twice because I missed a part. So it's funny how your senses work um, whenever you're
Sure, it
consuming
happens. I
information while
mean, it's
driving.
happened plenty of times to me. And I think that's why I never got into audiobooks, because that continuity is more important than,
Mhm.
podcasts, or, if it's a comedy thing, like you missed one joke, like who cares? You just keep going.
Right.
News, right? Like they repeat it every 30 minutes.
Yep.
Um, and so, uh,
Yeah, I tend to read nonfiction and watch fiction.
I
So
had
if
a
I,
I had a good rotation for a while where it was like a work of fiction, a work of nonfiction, and then some sort of like self-helpy thing. And then
no,
like
yeah,
for book, just like rotated one, one right after the other,
yeah,
and for a couple years. Uh, but I think I consume fiction and nonfiction, I think, in all medias.
yeah, I probably should consume more fiction in reading. I just don't. I consider that to be a flaw of mine, actually, that because I hear people use it to unwind at the end of a day, like hop in bed and read a book or something like that. And I should really do that, but I don't.
I was that
So,
way for a long time. And then I was going through a rough patch, and my sister was like, "You need some Russian literature in your life. Here's a copy of Anna Karenina." And reading through that, reading through the way Tolstoy laid out this historical progress of Russia, of the Russian people, and this like social analysis through fiction. And I was like, wow, you can really, it's not just a story. It's not just fiction. Like there's so much you can do with it. Um, and then yeah, literature became a staple in my life ever since.
yeah, that's I haven't read anything that heavy, so maybe I should.
I
I
had this
mean,
one
cause
truck driving job hauling hazardous waste where there were days where half of my workday was just spent sitting at a disposal facility
oh
waiting
yeah,
for some sample to get tested and
hmm
disposed of. And so I was able to get through, I got through War and Peace at the shed in the smoke shack of DuPont Chemicals at the mouth of the Delaware River, is
I
where
love
I
that.
read War and Peace. Yeah.
Are you on the East Coast?
I grew up out there.
Okay.
Now I live about an hour north of Chicago.
Oh, okay, cool, cool. Well, speaking of childhood, you want to get into it?
Sure,
Tell me,
we can get into it.
yeah, tell me where you're from, and some of the stuff that we talked about, just going back and forth in our discussion. Just tell me about your early life.
Early life was very much centered around the church and my family. It was suburban Philadelphia on the Jersey side, and there's probably three towns between where my grandparents lived in what was eventually my father's childhood home. He grew up a military brat, like they bounced around for a while, but the bulk of
Uh-huh.
his childhood was spent once my grandfather hit the desk out there in New Jersey. And my uncle and his wife and their kids at the time lived kind of halfway in between us. My aunt was living in my grandmother's basement, and my other uncle lived in the other town in between where we lived and where my grandparents were. And the center of this all really was the First Baptist Church out there, which was not a Southern Baptist convention church.
Okay.
Uh, it was for the time, early 80s, very much a liberal brand of Christianity.
So heretical.
Um,
Got it. No.
yeah, I don't know. Uh, yeah, I mean, the ultimate heretic though was Jesus himself, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that's okay. So I'm, being heretical in the face of established power structures is actually a pretty on-brand thing for
Uh-huh.
Christianity, I think. It is. now I think, both the problem and part of the problem and part of the solution.
Hmm. Mm. Well, we'll get back to that. I definitely
Sure.
have some bookmarks on that. So you're, well, as we've probably figured out, that I was raised Southern Baptist, so it would be different. I kid, of course. I mean, I don't know what the difference is. Like whenever I was growing up, there was a First Baptist Church that we would sometimes do things with them, but I have no idea if what
Mm.
kind of convention or non-convention they were part of. I don't even know if we would necessarily consider them to quote unquote believe differently. You know what I mean?
I
Just
don't think
because they
so.
were at a different, I mean, I don't know. So whenever someone says First Baptist Church, I always think of that, and I think about the pastor, and
It was,
he was a
there. I don't.
giant
There
man.
wasn't a Southern Baptist presence. There
Yeah.
was the First Baptist Church, and there was the Second Baptist Church. And I mean, growing up in New Jersey, it was always the case that the First Baptist Church was the white church, and the Second Baptist Church was the black church. You go into
Oh,
any Second Baptist church, I think anywhere in the country, and it's almost guaranteed that that's going to be a black church. Um,
no, I don't
and
like
a
that.
totally different experience than what you're going to get at the First Baptist Church in that
Oh,
same
sure.
town.
Far more interesting, I'm
Uh,
sure. So,
yeah, yeah. No,
so, oh, go ahead.
so for again, growing up, there really, uh, there is no thing that can be looked at as the church's fault. That created any sort of trauma or bad taste with the religion, I think, in my mind, ever. And I
Mhm.
know a lot of people who, grew up Christian no longer identify as Christian. There is some sort of trauma back there driving that wedge between them and their childhood faith. And for me, it was very much just a case of leaving the nest and exploring other things and
Mhm.
finding validity in those other things and leading me to explore even more other things, and in a process that is still maturing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh no, I certainly have seen that. I've been asked that, like, oh well, who hurt you, that type of thing. I'm like, listen, nobody hurt me. Like I was fine with the church I was at,
It doesn't
whenever
have to be like
whenever I
hurt, as
left.
in, what I mean? Like, Catholics, right? I mean, the low hanging fruit is to point out Catholicism and the issues that they've had.
Yeah.
But and not just that kind of trauma, but just, of, hiding things, a shame based, practice in so many different ways, in so many different places, right? Like it's so difficult to point to Christianity and be like, it is this one thing. Um, a lot of different expressions of it.
Tell me a little bit more about what you think about just the idea of some sort of religious trauma,
I
like
mean, it
where
can
that might
stem
stem
from
from.
so many different places. Sexual abuse is a large one. Psychological abuse is another one.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think like the first real harm done by Christianity is implanting this dualistic type of thinking. There's good and there's evil, and that is something that stays
Mhm.
foundational to your paradigm. Anything like inserted that early in childhood stays there. It's like the absolute base of who you become. And I having to overcome that, I think, is one of the biggest things.
Yeah, w- whenever you start off young, like both of us did, where
Yeah,
it's a part of your life, and where it's
yeah,
it's kind of central, really, even if you want to admit it or not. I mean, if you went regularly, and if your parents, if your family, I should say, prayed, emphasis on reading the Bible, things of that nature, and then you're going to be exposed to some ideologies that's going to differ just wildly among different denominations.
yeah.
You're going to have some level of trauma, and some people might not even realize I certainly didn't realize it was trauma until later. um like like one of the things for me, like
Mm,
Halloween was kind of off limits,
yeah,
and then you grow up and you find out that there were other people that Halloween wasn't off limits,
yeah.
and you're like, I don't understand, because it was drilled into me how bad it was, so that was it's weird to wrestle with as an adult, as a grown ass adult. You think, man, I can handle this, and this is, now I don't believe in it, so
Do you
surely
still
I can
find
deal with
trouble?
it. And then you find that
Yeah.
me, um I I don't have like rapture anxiety or any of that kind
Is
of
rapture
shit.
anxiety a legit
Fortunately,
phenomenon among people?
the last
Oh, wow.
oh yeah, it's a legit phenomenon. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There are people that really struggle with. They read the news and then they cross reference it with the Book of Revelation, and then they say, "Well, we must be in the end times." And so there's that. That wasn't really a problem for me. Some of the things that I've had to wrestle with, like the last thing to go
Hmm.
was hell, I
That
would
was the
say.
first thing to go for me.
That was kind of a, oh, for your
Yeah,
fortunes.
I mean, along with it comes, letting go of a heaven. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
that letting
Yeah.
go of that, of a fear of that, of a belief that it's real. That was definitely one of the earlier steps for me. I mean, 'cause my gateway
Hmm.
into other ways of framing the supernatural was through Eastern thought. I grew up in the hardcore scene, and there were a lot of Krishna monks hanging around. There were bands whose whole deal was being a Krishna conscious band. I mean, it's the stuff they sung about. It's the literature I was exposed to, and just
Hmm.
finding this like, all right, well, there's this other way of describing what exists outside of our perceived world, and so yeah, so concepts like heaven and hell were kind of the first thing to go. The stuff that's remained
Yeah.
is the
That's
ethics,
probably,
is just like what how it was we were called to act, at least within my church, in my experience, how we were called to be humans out
mhm.
in the world towards other humans. That has remained, and I think in many ways strengthened through that process of exploration.
Do you think that your church that you went to was a little bit more
Absolutely. I
progressive
think,
technically?
and I think my father had a large hand in shaping that. You talk about being
Yeah.
involved, and some of my earliest memories are being pushed in a stroller by my father as he and the pastor walked before service every Sunday. Um, they were, some of the deepest and headiest conversations that those two men ever had in their lives. And I guess
Uh-huh.
late childhood, early adolescence, my father and one of the associate pastors formed a kind of spin-off congregation that met at a pizza parlor half a mile up the street from the actual church, and just a much smaller, more intimate crowd, and that sort of progressive interpretation and application of Christianity was something that was always a big part of my father's life, uh, especially growing up.
Huh. Yeah. I think some of the similarities between your version of Baptist and my version of Baptist, that there's maybe my I wouldn't call mine
But I mean, yeah, I
progressive,
mean,
that
not
I
if they're
would at
banning
all.
Halloween.
but I but yeah, 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 I grew
Mm,
up in a small town, so it
yeah,
was still
no,
helpful,
absolutely. I mean, that
if
sense of
that makes sense.
community
So
is
if
is is
somebody
so important.
needed something,
And I
yeah,
and
yeah,
I mean,
right,
I still go to church regularly.
yeah,
I go on the weekends that I don't have my daughter. Um, and
mhm,
it's I mean, I see the town clerk there. I see some of my neighbors there. The pastor himself is my neighbor. I mean, we cross paths, walk in the street. We have regular sit downs, with coffee, conversations, catching up. It's a and
yeah,
that
yeah,
institution works very closely with the township's food pantry, with a community level shelter.
uh-huh,
It hosts Boy Scout troops. It hosts, a few different 12-step meetings. And it uses its now vacant classroom space with the Park District to host preschool. So it's still like very much doing a lot of work in the community.
Yeah, definitely. Um, the only thing that gets me whenever I see churches, I'm just, little
Yeah.
C church, um, doing that is that it seems, and mine did that. They had some different little ministries. Anywhere that I've gone has had something, which it makes sense, right? That's how you get your name out in the community and you show people that you're involved. But it also, every other religion
I
does
think
that
most other religions
too.
do it a
And
lot
is it
better.
out of a it,
And I think, I mean, Islam does a great
yeah,
job with
yeah,
that. I mean, tithing is such
yeah,
an
that's
integral part of, Islamic culture. Um, and yeah, I
uh-huh,
mean, I mean, I feel like that's kind of a cynical take on, why a church would do those things. And I mean, at
right,
least, I mean, I can only speak for my own church. But the motivation is very much, along the lines of this is the behavior we're called to engage in. Um, this is what
sure,
we're supposed to
sure,
do. This is how we're supposed to function. This
uh-huh.
is our job as a church.
Yes, and that gets me back to a thought that I have about Christianity being like the original MLM.
Multi-layer marketing.
You know,
I had forgotten what
yeah,
that term was. It
yeah.
just came up
It's
in
like, well,
conversation yesterday. A friend was like, "Do you ever get into MLM?" And I'm
yeah,
like, "What?" And he described it. I'm
yeah,
like, "Oh, the pyramid schemes." Like,
yeah.
no, I was invited to a couple seminars, but I was like, "This is a pyramid
Well,
scheme." He's like, "Ah, yeah, I did it." I'm like, "All right."
yeah. Well, it's just like the goal is constant expansion
Eh,
forever, right?
That's
And
the goal of
whenever you
power. That's the
whenever you
goal of
think about it,
power,
you're like,
constant
huh,
expansion. And when you
yeah,
associate power with any sort of institution or structure, then that institution structure is going to, take over the ambitions of power. I don't think power is
mm,
an inherent part of Christianity or any individual church. But I think it is so often so closely associated that it's very easy to assume that the two are the same.
yeah. And I think any organizational structure, even if it's
Yeah.
secular, I mean, it doesn't matter.
If
Eventually,
if
they all
power,
become
if
kind of
power is a part
corrupt.
of it,
Like
absolutely.
I was reading something. I like to read this website called Hacker News. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but it's not about hacking. It's just about technology issues. It's just links to other stories. And there was one where it just linked to a Wikipedia page talking about like some dude a long time ago came up with like the law of oligarchy and about how that ultimately all power structures get to a point where that's kind of like the final destination is
I suppose we've
is
arrived there,
oligarchy.
haven't we?
And I was like, wow,
So I remain
yeah,
excited
yeah,
for
we're
what
good.
comes next because this is getting old. We have there's
uh,
it's hard to believe we've done anything but reach an end stage. And I guess if your idea of an end stage is so closely associated with the rapture, I can see how things going on now would trigger a certain level of anxiety. Uh,
so glad I don't have that
Same.
because man, because I mean, it would be
Yeah,
easy to make that
yeah,
connection given how connected
yeah.
we are in the world. Like now we can know about a tsunami off the coast of Russia and
We
worry about
can.
it for
I
half a
missed
day,
that one.
and
I
then
was
it
tuned
fizzles
out long
out
enough to
and
miss that
nothing
one. I
bad
opened it up
happens.
this morning, really to message you, and like, bumping in and out, saw a post. I'm like, a tsunami happened yesterday. Like, what was I doing? Um, did I miss that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, huge tsunami. It was like the 4th largest on record, as far as the quake and, like, I don't know, I didn't read all the details, but I'm sure I made half of the right words
Doing
there,
better than most.
but
Yeah.
it was a big deal and could potentially
Yeah.
it could have caused a lot of damage, and fortunately, it fizzled out, but we wouldn't have known about that given, I don't know, maybe
Yeah. I
as
mean, the
back as
80s, we
the
would have found
'80s.
out about it the next day. It would
We
have been on the world
yeah,
news. But it would have been a
newspaper.
small bit on a half-hour news program
Mhm.
that comes on once a day. Uh,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A quake in Russia that didn't cause any actual
Yeah, but
damage in the States. That would have been a small bit on the world news. But you're right. Now it's,
yeah,
you couldn't, I
you
imagine
wouldn't
if
have
I
had
were on the
time to
internet at
even
all in the
worry
past
about
day
it.
and a half, I probably wouldn't have been able to escape it.
No, no, not at all. And apparently you
Yeah.
weren't on social either, because there was plenty of discussion like, "Oh, I'm so concerned Hawaii's gonna be
How's
engulfed,"
Hawaii
and,
now, though?
and, like, Hawaii had some
You think they're fine? All right, good.
I
Just
think they're
checking.
fine. I think they're back to
Just
eating
want to,
coconuts and
just want to make
macadamia
sure there's
nuts,
another
so,
panic
I think
that I
yeah.
somehow dodged. I,
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's fine to it's fine to be a little cautious, especially after
mm,
the floods down in Texas, which unfortunately now, since it's rained a lot, I live in Kansas City, I'm in the center of the United States, and so we've had a lot of little rains, and we've had some flash floods, and it kind of, for some of the members in my household, they get a little anxious, and I'm like, just go upstairs. You know, so, but yeah, it's because we have this access to information, more so than anyone has ever had, that we get a chance to like work that in with some of our other either beliefs or even things that maybe we don't believe in anymore, but they're still
and the
there. They're still stuck
actual
in our
dire
brain.
circumstances that we face. I mean, we've got at least one active genocide going on
Yeah.
that has like completely overshadowed two
Hmm.
brutal civil wars happening in Africa. And just the political chaos in the U.S. Wars everywhere, and I mean, there's a lot of like good, real evidence out there in reality that says like, things are pretty crazy right now. Um, but who knows to the
Yeah.
degree how much more crazier they were
Yeah.
during it?
Wars
I mean,
and
how many
rumors.
civil wars and genocides went on, in centuries past, even decades past, like you said, 50s, 60s, 70s. I bet you could kill off a tribe in Africa and a news crew would never even hear about it. Um, yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I guess we don't
Well,
know.
even yeah, and even like most of the wars that the United States has been involved in, or the little
Yeah,
conflicts,
conflicts.
it's like later you find out how much yeah, conflicts, how many lies,
Yeah,
were told. Like the Vietnam War was basically
yeah,
all built around a lie. Like
yeah,
how awful, so maybe information could be good if it can expose that stuff before it gets out of hand, but as you've already rightly noted, we are witnessing genocide right now, and we're all um, well exposed to the information, and yet it doesn't seem like it feels. It sucks to feel kind of powerless to do anything about that. Whenever we thought that it would be
yeah.
never again.
It does. It does. It does suck to feel
Uh,
powerless.
so
Um, But
yeah,
I think our power
yeah.
just lies elsewhere. Not so much that we are powerless, if that makes sense. Uh,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. I can get behind that. I mean, we just have to. It may not have the impact that
sure.
we wish that we could have, but we still have some impact that can be measurable, um, in a way where, if at the very least that we find a way to maintain some level of humanity, then that's better than sticking our head in
It
the
is better
sand.
than sticking your
So,
head in the sand, but there is a certain degree of, I would say, acceptance to the way the world is. Uh, but I think you really need to have
mhm.
in order to, um, I mean, live the I guess the best possible life that you can, in this little time that you have. Uh, with no
Yeah,
guaranteed end date. Um, so I don't know. I mean, it's a
yeah.
balance.
Tell me more. Tell me more about. Help me if I say this name wrong. Is it
Yeah,
Hara Krishna? Yeah, is that what you were talking about? You mentioned the Krishnas, and I
yeah,
presume the
yeah, yeah,
Hara
yeah.
Krishnas are part of that, because
This is like a
that's
branch of Hinduism.
Hinduism, correct?
Hinduism's a pretty
Okay.
interesting religion in that, I mean, similar to Christianity, right? It like breaks off into all these different branches. But dissimilar to Christianity, those branches aren't
Mhm.
united by one singular figure, right? In Christianity's case, Jesus.
Yeah.
But like within Hinduism, the variety of characters have, it's more analogous to like the MCU than it is Christianity in that regard, right? There are like these endless threads that you can go down
Okay.
as far as, what these stories try to tell. And the figure of Krishna is one of them. Um, so I guess I would categorize it as a branch of Hinduism.
Hmm. There, I went to Paris, my last year of college, and while I was there, I was in Montmartre, which is
Hmm.
where like a lot of artists gather and paint things, and do artistic things. And there was a group of Hare Krishnas that they were just walking.
Yeah,
That's all they were doing. They were
yeah.
walking, and they had a little tambourine, and they were kind of like beating on it, but they weren't being really loud or anything. I mean, they weren't bothering me. They were
No,
noticeable,
I mean,
but so was everybody else, you know. And somebody dumped a bucket of water on them, and I thought,
oh
from
man.
like two stories up, right, as they walked by, and I was like, well, that was a real dick thing to do. Like, they weren't really doing anything. They didn't bother anybody. I didn't understand, and it was very, very interesting to go to a different country and see some sort of like weird persecution going on for like, okay, yeah, I probably don't believe the way they do, but at the same time, I wouldn't. There would never be a part of me that says I need to, be so outwardly mean to them just because they don't believe the same way I do. Now, it'd be different if they were maybe shoving pamphlets in people's faces. Then I probably would have said, yeah, that they
I
got what
think
they
they get a bit
deserved.
more aggressive in the U.S.
And
I
I
think,
don't, you know,
their presence in airports, I think, was a bit of a comedic trope for a bit. The monks do get a bad rap. I
oh
mean,
yeah,
but their presence at shows,
airplane,
I mean, they
yeah,
had a table like with the other merch vendors, and we're just there to talk about it. And there was a temple
uh-huh.
in South Philly. Didn't spend a lot of time there. I think probably only visited it a couple times. And but I've read the Bhagavad Gita, and it's an interesting approach. Um,
Yeah. You are kind of inspiring me though to maybe go, um, just be a spectator,
the
and
spectating is one of my
go,
favorite things to do.
um, ch- just go visit like some different things, different churches or synagogues or whatever. I mean, I'm just going to call them buildings because I'm going to screw up their name, but but it might be interesting to go now as a non-believer, versus, when I was more deeper into it, I think that I would have had some sort of like ongoing uncomfortableness that, where I'd try to like, or, deal with the fact that, oh, I don't believe that and this is why, versus like, well, I don't believe any of this, so I'm open to just go and, just observe like I was going to
Yeah.
hear a TED talk,
I think,
basically.
I mean, I would encourage that behavior to be totally honest. Yeah, I mean, go observe, go out there, right? Like, don't
Yeah.
base your knowledge off of, I don't know, a priori stuff. Like, go out in the world and experience it, understand it. Talk to the faith leaders, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a mosque
There's a
down the
mosque.
street.
Oh man.
There's a mosque down the street. Yeah, wouldn't mind. And by mosque, I mean it's a cinder block building that, because I live in the city, but in a suburb, so it's not real ornate. Is all I'm saying, but I don't know if. I mean, maybe I'm showing my own prejudice here, but
Oh,
I don't
absolutely they
know that
would.
they would let
That
me in.
100%.
I
They
know
would
that
let you
sounds
in.
ridiculous,
And
so
I like 90% guarantee you will meet some of like the most amazing men you've ever met in your entire life. Just like walking in there and talking to them. I
yeah.
mean, I don't know if I've ever been in a mosque, uh, but I've had plenty of Muslim friends. I think especially like, during the time where I was driving a taxi in Philadelphia. Um, just knew a lot. Like,
Mhm.
the Jews owned half the medallions and the Muslims owned the other half. And they were my people, They were, I mean, just the Muslims that I've known are among the kindest people I've ever met in my entire life.
And for the, I know what you mean, but you should probably tell for the audience
Oh,
what a
sure. I mean, a
medallion means
medallion
to a
is
driver.
it's essentially just a license to operate a cab. A lot of bigger cities use them. They get stapled to the car. It is just a physical representation of a license to be able to perform a service in the city.
There we go. And now you just
Now,
sign up for
yeah,
Uber.
it was about when I
Uh,
got out of it. It was around the exact same time. Like when I was driving a taxi, Uber launched in Philadelphia as like strictly a black car service,
yeah.
and it was like
Oh,
long
okay. Yeah.
before the ride sharing thing that we have now. It was a black car on demand service.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, their arrival mixed with a few other things, I was like, you know what, let's go do something else. Um,
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you found
yeah.
something else that that worked for you, and also that you kind of read the tea leaves at the same time. So after your, I don't know, would you say that was high school or more post high school? Whenever you started branching out and
So late
learning
high school.
more
Yeah,
than
late
just
late high
what you were
school.
raised in. Late high school. Okay.
Uh,
Okay. What did it look like after high
After
school?
high school, I left home early, and it looked like uh, a lot of partying immediately after high school. I started working in restaurants, and
Okay.
uh,
Uh-huh.
they're a partying crowd, restaurant workers, and after
Yeah.
that, I think got into more Western philosophy, read some like single source stuff, started with the classics. And, from there moved into, developing an understanding of physics, and as much as the math that, I have at my disposal allowed me to understand the ideas behind,
Mhm.
what physics is saying about reality. And from there
Yeah.
has just kind of morphed into I usually call it my poorly defined pantheism. Um, like I don't really have, I can't spell out for you like what it is, what it means. There are a lot of different ways to interpret the word pantheism. For me, it comes down to like asking the
Yeah.
question, like, if a god is, if there is a god and it is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent, then it has to be a sort of pantheism, or the thing that we're talking about is not actually God and should be called by something else, or at least have a lowercase g around it. Uh, but Christianity teaches that,
Right.
that God is, capital G God and is all of those things. And
Uh-huh.
so for me, then a lot of the Bible then necessarily becomes metaphor, because if the God we're talking about is all of these things, then there's no way that we can set ourselves on a literal description of what this thing is. We can't say God is
Uh-huh.
this, God is that, without it necessarily being metaphorical, or it's not capital G God, in which case it's all a farce, which they wouldn't commit on their own. And so it's all metaphor. That's where I landed.
The the pantheism idea is, I think, interesting, because if you're a believer that subscribes just to like one thing, right? Like, oh, I'm a Christian or I'm a Muslim, and then somebody comes along and says, well, I'm a pantheist, then in a weird way, it's almost about as difficult to comprehend as unbelief if you're staunchly believing in
Right.
something, because you're like, how can you believe in all of them? And I've heard several people say either there's no God
I
or
wouldn't
there's
even
all
say
of them,
all of
and
them,
either one
I
I'm
mean, I would
okay
say
with.
that it is all of this, and all of them are attempts at building a metaphor around this idea in order to develop a way of living. And it's really, accepting a poorly defined pantheism, I think, is what has brought me to like this current position of mine, which is ethics first. Like the thing that matters most is uh how you regulate your behavior, how you treat other human beings, and what you actually do. Um, because none of these belief systems can
Right.
possibly be complete explanations. I'm sure there is like a sliver of possibility, right? Like, part of physics is like it's never a
Mhm.
certainty, right? Like it's only like high degrees of probability. Like that's what reality runs on, high degrees of probability.
Right.
Uh,
It's totally science, and science is not about, like, proving things, it's, like, pretty much just waiting to see if it
yeah,
gets
and
disproven, you know?
it's
You know, and then to, like, rework your thoughts around that and be like,
I mean, it
"Okay,
sounds a
well,
lot
that's
like living
disproven,
life,
so,
right?
I
Where
guess
it's
we'll,
like you go
take
around
another
and then
step."
something gets disproven and
Yeah.
you're like,
Oh,
all right, we'll
yeah.
build this new thing or, around which I'll behave and then it gets disproven.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is,
Yeah.
yeah, progress through negation, right? Like not necessarily progress through proof,
Yeah.
through like a positive means.
Yeah. What 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 do you think
Sure.
if you self-examine, what do you think is your driver for wanting to learn about all of these different approaches to, uh, ethics, beliefs? What drives you
I
to
think
explore?
I think it's a combination of two things. I think there is a certain degree of innate desire to explore and grow with being human. There are like very few things that I'm willing to claim are universal aspects of being human, but I think to some degree the desire to grow and to explore is one of them. And just being raised in a household that nurtured that, that didn't stifle it in one way, shape, or form.
Mhm.
um, and so then, yeah, it was one of those things that just became a foundational aspect of my personality.
Yeah. And I do sometimes wonder where personality comes
I think
from.
it's a dynamic interplay between,
And
genetics and environment from the very first second you become alive. I mean, that's that to the best of my
yeah.
understanding, that's how personality is formed.
I look
Cat.
at my cat and I'm like, man, you guys are
Yeah.
all well, we have 3 cats, right? And they're very, they just their personalities really intrigue me, a lot, like, one of them, he's the oldest, but he's not, like, old. I mean, we've had him for a couple years, and whenever we got him, he was little, but he's older than the other 2, and he has very much a, like, I'll be mischievous sometimes, but most of the time, I just kinda don't give a fuck, and I'm just gonna, like, hang out, and, like, he doesn't run for treats or anything like that, he kinda waits for them to come to him, and then, one of the others is more aggressive,
How any animal
and
is able to overcome their like food
and
motivation and say like I like,
yeah.
anytime an animal is capable of doing that, I'm
Yeah.
like, that's kind of impressive. Like you should 100% be food
Yeah,
motivated.
it
Like
is
you're wild,
impressive.
uh,
Yeah. So, but it's not like I'm sitting around with my cats talking philosophy or anything like that. I mean, so I'm like, where did they get their personality? It's very interesting, and maybe it's
I
like you
don't know if it's
said,
different
like
for
it's
cats.
it's nurturing, it's
I can say for
environment.
certain that it
Yeah,
is
I don't
a
know.
similar process for dogs. But I don't really know about cats. I've had some in my life. I
Yeah.
love cats. Just haven't owned as many of them as I have dogs. Haven't spent as much time with them as I have dogs.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
But dog
Dog
personality is
personality is
pretty
very
interesting
interesting.
too, I
I
think.
mean,
I mean,
mostly because they co-evolved with us. Um, there would not be dogs if not for humans, and I don't think there would be humans if not for
uh-huh.
dogs. If we didn't have their, shortened light sleep cycle beside us, at the campfire, and we would have been eaten by other apex predators a long time
Uh,
ago. Um,
that is a good thing to note, and it's certainly handy to have someone by your side that doesn't require
yeah,
the same amount of sleep that you do,
yeah.
to be able to
Ask my
watch your
daughter.
back. So
You can sleep 12 hours overnight. And I'm like, I don't know how you do it,
Oh, man.
but thank you for the 6 free hours that I get to
Right,
do
yeah,
something.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, Speaking of,
One child.
you
Yeah.
you have 1 kid?
Yeah. Yeah. She's
1
going to
child?
turn
Okay,
8
and
in a
then,
couple weeks
how
here.
does
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's cute. Yeah. How does your ho you probably share some of this, with her, I presume, that you're, exposing her
Yes.
to lots of different ideas, and, I mean, how does that work in your I mean,
Yeah,
you said you still go to church. Do you go to, but
sure.
you're more pantheistic, so you probably are, I presume, and strike me if I'm wrong here, but are you going more for like the community aspect and the fact that it's more central to just co coexisting with other people
That's
that
a big
you
part
can
of
get
it.
along with? Or I don't know, you describe that for me.
That community aspect is a big part of it. I think a space to tithe. Tithe, I grew up with tithing being an important thing, with volunteering, with giving back, and
Mhm.
so a space to tithe is important to me. Having that space be a place that does this kind of work within the community makes me very comfortable with it. But absolutely, I receive
Yeah.
a ton of spiritual nurture and guidance from the pastor. Um, it's
Mhm.
I've pulled I've held nothing back from him in any of our conversations. He knows he and I have had, similar conversations to what we're having now. I mean, dozens of times at this point. And he
Mhm.
gets it, he
Yeah.
understands it, he accepts it. Uh, and I think he's grateful for our relationship and my desire to be a part of the community of the church there. Um, it's a great man. I
Yeah.
like
Well, I think it's,
have
yeah,
so much love and respect for him as a man, for sure. Yeah, and
that's awesome.
really all of the
Yeah.
pastors in my life have been.
Well, I
I know we haven't gotten the chance to talk about this yet, but I know that we're both in the very recent Dead Fathers Club, and one of the first
yeah.
people I reached out to when mine passed was the pastor that married my parents, who baptized me, and who went on all those walks with my father and I when I was, an infant or a toddler. There's a connection that has existed my entire life.
Well, let's just
What, the
get
Dead
into
Father
it
Club?
then. So,
Yeah, sure.
yeah,
I
let's
mean,
get into the Dead
we
Father
can't really
Club.
talk about
So,
like Christianity
uh,
or Christianity's role in our lives without talking about our fathers, right? Uh,
that's absolutely true. Yeah. So, when did
September
yours pass?
of 24.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yours
okay.
was more
Pretty
recent though,
recent.
right? If I recall.
Yeah.
January, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
January.
So
Yeah.
still,
Yeah. Uh,
yeah. It's still,
it's
very
still what?
close, but not a I think like it's a twice the distance, right? We're both within a year, and it's, quick math, twice the distance between.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess it's getting late in the year.
Yeah.
Matter.
How
Time,
did
wow,
yours
time keeps moving, man. And it's
quicker
just
than your,
like as soon as I stop and think about it, I'm like, wow, look at
I
that.
know.
Time has moved.
I
Well, I was
know.
busy doing other things.
Yeah, that's kind of an
That's
it's
part of
kind
it.
of getting older thing. You start noticing
Oh,
time
I
a lot
notice it a
more,
whole lot less.
which I don't think is
Yeah,
necessarily a bad
yeah.
thing.
I
Oh,
like tune
really?
it out so
Interesting.
much now. I'm like, who
Yeah.
cares? Like, life's still just unfolding, whether I'm paying attention to the time or not. Like, there's uh, always a task in front of
Well,
me. Uh, but no, I mean, what?
that's fair. That's where I get hung up on the time though. I'm like, man, if I just sit down and play on my phone again, then this is probably I'm not doing something that
Sure.
if I would just get it done and get it out of the way, then it won't be this lingering thing because I have
Yeah,
projects, right? This podcast is one of the more successful ones just because it actually got shipped.
there we go.
So rather than working on something forever and never getting it done. But how did your how
I
did your father pass? If you don't mind me asking,
no,
you can always say no, of course.
there's nothing about this is off limits. Um, I guess the short answer is that he drank himself to death. uh, and that
Okay.
presented finally as appendicitis, which burst, which he didn't go to the hospital
Mm,
for like 13, 14 hours until like the next morning, crashing on
mhm,
the operating table, being technically dead for 12 minutes, being resuscitated, and
mm.
then a little under a week in a comatose state. Uh, of like, is he, is his body going to heal from this? Isn't it? Until finally at one point it was like, my sister and I had to make the call, like, do we take on this next extreme measure, uh, or, do we say this is it? And then that was it.
Yeah. Was that hard?
Uh, no, no, and
No. Easy. Because you were like, I don't want him to.
that's a
I don't want
part
him
of
to
it.
suffer. Is it?
I mean,
I mean,
it's a
was
lot
that?
deeper. The
Yeah.
the very first funeral I went to with my father was for one of his best friends, a member of the church, who, while walking through Philadelphia, came across a domestic dispute, tried to get in the middle of it, and was stabbed to death. Um, and so that was my first experience
Mm.
with death. And he and I mean, I couldn't even begin to count the funerals. From drug overdoses to
Yeah.
suicides to car accidents to cancer to, old age to, I mean, it was just one funeral after another with him. And um,
Hmm.
I, it,
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Why are you going to so
they're
many
just they're
funerals with
just
him?
people in
Why?
our life, like I said, just people in our lives passed, for a variety
Yeah.
of reasons. It's just,
Just
some
dying.
people go most of their lives without having a close one die, and that has just not been the case for
Hmm.
us. And so, I mean, what that equaled
Mm.
was a lot of time talking to him about the nature of death, of life, of, the purpose of it
Yeah.
all. And through through my entire life, like through all my stages of development, these deaths are hitting us in one way, shape, or form. And so a very deep understanding of what passing away meant to him, I think is what made
Yeah.
it not hard. And absolutely, I didn't want to see that. I mean, that was the number. I'm like, why are we doing this? Like, he doesn't even want to be here. This is, like it's presenting as appendicitis now, but like, like I said, this is the culmination of decades at this point of him intentionally trying to drink himself into the grave. Um, it is, if we get him to survive through this, his life will either be miserable for the last portion of it, or he's going to go right back to destroying his body, and be back here very quickly, and then be stuck in that miserable condition. Like, we've hit the positive feedback loop of, the end, destruct moment in his life. Like, this is it. This is it. Uh,
Did you ever tap into why he
yeah,
was
a
so
bit.
self-destructive?
Um,
Yeah.
as best as I could. He kept a lot to himself,
Yeah.
and I think I was fortunate enough to get more out of him than I think anybody else, except perhaps maybe his sister. Um, but there's just so much I don't know. Uh, I think the divorce with my
Yeah.
mother began that spiral. The divorce with his second wife um, accelerated the process. His third wife was kind of a joke.
Hmm.
His fourth wife, uh, I mean, still lives very close in my heart. And then his fifth
Yeah.
wife, he just didn't know how to be alone.
Wow.
She was also a widower, and was just really probably the only woman left on the planet who would tolerate his bullshit or like see through it, or just like not care, or just like
Yeah.
be in a place in life where it's like, all right, you can do this. I'll turn a blind eye, or I don't know, man. I like when he decided to marry her, it was hard. Our relationship went through a lot of cycles. And
It seems like he was still trying to find that
well,
companionship. He's, you know,
he was trying to fill a hole, man, and his drug of choice
hmm
was women. And when the women didn't work out, his second drug of choice was alcohol. Uh, I,
right.
but what was that hole? What's that original wound? What was that thing that he could never move past? Uh, that part I have
Mhm.
vague suspicions at best, and
Okay. But
I don't know. I don't know how much it matters. You know, I mean, what matters is that
yeah,
there was this
that's true.
wound,
I mean,
and it shaped his life in sometimes amazing ways and sometimes terrible ways.
it always feels like it matters more if you feel like there's a chance you can do something to make it better. But
No,
he's not with us anymore. So you could be right that I mean,
yeah.
what does it matter now? I mean, that was his run, and now you
I
got
mean,
your
in the
run.
end, I mean, in the
And
end,
I got mine, and we're
all
trying to
I
figure
have
things
is
out.
gratitude towards him, uh, and some sadness
It's
towards
a
his
good place to be.
absence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get that.
Otherwise, there really wasn't a lot to
Well, I'm
process.
terrible.
You know, there was a deep,
Yeah.
one of after Christianity stopped being the centralized belief system, holding our family together. In many ways, 12-step programs became that. And
Uh-huh.
he did his best. And, I worked, the sister program to AA, Al-Anon, for quite a few years. And
Mhm.
yes, I mean, there's a lot of acceptance and gratitude. I mean, those are the two things that program hammers into you more than anything else. Find acceptance, find gratitude, find acceptance, find gratitude. And I mean, as far as I can
Mhm.
tell, jury's still out on me. I've still got, you know, time left. But as far as I can tell, I think it's the best way to frame your life, as far as how you get to experience it moving forward.
Yeah.
She is.
Is your mom still with us, or do
I
you
do.
have a
Yeah.
connection with her?
It too has gone through
Okay.
its phases of being strained, especially early on after their divorce. But it's matured. And, she lives out in
Good.
California. So there's a big time difference. We don't get to see each other all that
Mhm.
often. So there's distance in the relationship. Um, I think necessarily because of time and distance. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I would call it strong and healthy.
Okay. Good. Um, and what about
Mm,
these days with grief? Does it hit you? Because I mean, since I was your first parent, I know with my first parent, my mom died back in 2018. So the experiences, well, she died suddenly, and then dad took years because he had Alzheimer's. So the experience was different with him. Like I haven't had a lot of those waves of grief where it comes and smacks you in the face, and then you just start crying for no reason. And
right.
well, it's not for no reason, but you start crying like
Direct trigger.
no
Yeah.
exceptional direct trigger. Exactly. Yeah. So like you got any of that
Um,
rolling around?
Not a lot. I mean, during the more trying times, it pops up. Uh,
Hmm.
but it is
Feel
a
that.
it comes as a mixture. It is never just only grief. Uh, the sadness always walks hand in hand with the gratitude.
Hmm. Yeah. That's a
He was a very
it's
complex man. I mean,
complex.
the first half, A Tale of Two, I mean, really, it was like before he and my mother got divorced and after he and my mother got divorced, and it was like a real inflection point for him
Mhm.
as a person. And so much of that second act was spent, trying to cling on to the identity that he had in the first act, and um, just continuously reaching beyond his grasp and falling a bit further down.
Mhm. With how you look at your beliefs now, do you carry with you a concept of an
No,
afterlife or no?
no, I really don't.
Yeah. Just kind of like
no, I mean, even
we're
that in
done.
itself is a belief, right? Like the belief that there is nothing afterwards. Um, I honestly I have
Yeah.
no
Okay.
idea.
I'll
And
go
that's not to
along.
say like atheism is a belief system. I've seen those arguments. I'm like, this is like not worth my time to jump into. But the belief that there is nothing afterlife is, for sure a belief. I don't think there's anything strictly, I don't think there's anything necessary about atheism that says there has to be nothing after death. Um, because I mean, for any good atheist, right? Like the law of, is it the first law or the second law of thermodynamics? I always get confused. Second law,
Second law of
uh,
thermodynamics, where the
sure.
energy cannot be created or
Who knows what
destroyed; it
that
only
means?
transfers.
Who knows
So
what that means?
I've
You have
thought about
no
that a
idea.
lot.
Nobody does.
I
Nobody
don't
does.
know what that
Anyone
means.
who tells you
Yeah,
that they
in
know
the
is trying to
context
sell you
of
something. It's
yeah,
bullshit. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. And I mean,
yeah,
when it comes to an afterlife, all I know is what time I have right now, and to reach an understanding of what is the best way to spend that time that I have, that I know for sure, and that if there is, if any aspect of an afterlife is affected by, what happens in this life, if, big if, um, I mean, how else would you behave? How else would you attempt to have an effect on that outcome other than to build the best possible life that you can?
yeah. By the way, I
Mm,
was wrong. 'Cause first law:
there we go.
energy cannot be created or destroyed; only
Yeah,
transferred from
don't
one
edit the
form to another.
self-correction out. You know what?
Uh,
You know when people jump into the guy, oh,
oh,
you said
oh,
second
well,
law.
yeah, no, I
Oh,
tend to
really?
leave it all raw,
There
and
we go.
only like take up
I
the
figured like an
yeah.
hour
I
and a half
mean,
long
pretty much
conversation. I'm
what
like,
you
he's
hear
got to
is
cut half of
all the
it,
time.
right? Like, no, you're just gonna leave it all in. All right,
No,
let it go. Sure.
no, just let it go. I mean, that there's no
You're the
intro
editor,
music,
man.
there's no
I'm
nothing.
just a
It's just
guest.
like
Yeah.
let's just talk and so um I hear a cricket, but I think
What
it's
was it?
my it might
Oh,
be in yours. Oh, I hear a cricket. I couldn't
it
decide
is.
if it
It
was on
is
my
on
end or
my
yours.
end. Is it going to be
But
a problem? Okay. All right.
no, 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 not at
All
all.
right.
No, it's just part of life. So um but no, the it does make you think about that, like that whole first law of thermodynamics and
Could
like
mean
what that
anything.
could mean.
It really
It
could
really
mean
could mean anything,
anything.
It could mean that
It
it's
could just mean
spiritual.
like
It could
the
mean
the
that
particles
these
go
things like
somewhere. There's
personalities,
no guarantee that like your consciousness survives.
Yeah,
We don't even know what consciousness actually is, right?
yeah.
And it's like, and you're going to try to sell me a system where my consciousness survives after this life. You can't even tell me what consciousness is. Get the hell out of here. Get out of here.
I mean, the best we got is like
Here's some theories. Here's some
impulses,
ideas. They
electrical
continue to do research on
impulses.
the brain, and
That's
it continues
yeah,
to like disprove old theories and present us with new hypotheses of what this data could mean. We're not at the point of knowing what consciousness is yet, though, which is fine.
yeah. And I do feel that whenever it comes to belief systems, particularly pretty religious ones, that they, uh, I mean, really deep, like Christianity and uh, Islam, Judaism, that they tend to focus on how did we
Sure. I
get
think
here,
Judaism is more how did
and
we get
there's a
here, and
big
Christianity is more where are we going afterwards. Um, yeah, I mean, there was
where are we
for a
going
very
afterwards?
long
Yeah.
time in Jewish history,
Uh,
there just was no concept of a heaven or a hell. I mean, that was a kind of like a new
okay.
thing for the Jews. And there are still a
Uh-huh.
lot, I know a lot of them who are like, there's still in Judaism, there is no afterlife. I'm like, whatever, I don't care because I don't believe in it anyhow. So you're fine. Do whatever you want, man.
Yeah. Yeah. But for me to not believe in an afterlife has caused me to appreciate every day
It's bound to.
immensely more. Um, I just, because I'm like, well, I don't know how much time I have left, right? So, so I go through the day and I try to be like, well, I'm about to waste some time. Am I going to regret this later? Or should I just go ahead and waste the time because then I'm not really wasting it. I'm being intentional about my wasting. Um, and so, but whenever I had the belief, there was this this thought of, well, it's all going to burn in the end anyway, which unfortunately you see now. You see with like Christian nationalists, they seem to want to accelerate the
Yeah,
burn. Uh,
they're a weird bunch. They're a dangerous group.
which
Um, they really are.
they really are. Yeah.
And uh, I don't know. I mean, I think it's a shame that this uh, what could be a great positive influence in people's lives is really such a source of destruction in this world.
Yeah. Well, you kind of started off talking about this at the beginning, but talking about searching for ethical
Mhm.
ways to live your own life. So, which I think kind of brings us to where we're at today, right? Like that's your you're safe to say still a searcher, still searching for ways that not only how do you live, but since you are responsible
Yeah.
for another human directly, like how do you teach teach your kid how to grow up in a world that is increasingly confusing and um, not nice sometimes. It just depends on the day. It might be nice, but yeah, how does your belief system shape things
Uh,
today?
Shape things today, particularly how it relates to raising my daughter. It's I think doing the best possible job in raising her is rooted in that ethical approach. That this is far and away my largest contribution to humanity is the life of this child, and to do my absolute best at it is in many ways viewed as an act of service. Um, to the biggest way it shapes it, and how that presents in forming her paradigm. I try. It's a balance, between being open and laying on them, only slightly more than they're capable of handling. Right? Like you always want to give them just a little bit more.
Uh-huh.
That like
Yeah, a
that
little push.
little like next step up for them to reach for, to grasp, and to be, and then the space to be able to hold themselves up to it. That's true with ideas, including what's going on in the world. I mean, it was when she was 7 that I started introducing listening to the news every morning during breakfast. And we sit down. Breakfast is served at 7 o'clock, like almost on the dot, almost every single day. On school days. And it's one of her favorite. It's just like when she hears like the chime for the hour, to like kind of crane her head around the counter to look at the clock, make sure the clock is turning 7 o'clock right when the chimes are going off, which is, I mean,
Yeah.
a huge joy for me, because I have memories of my father setting his work truck's clock to a similar chime, on the AM local news radio station that he listened to pretty much all day when I was a kid. Uh,
Uh-huh.
Before AM news radio became, the biased, slop machine that it is now, when it was really just, your ticker tape news broadcast. Um,
What are you listening to with the
no,
daughter?
it's
Is it
BBC.
NPR, that kind of stuff, or
Yeah, they're
oh,
not
BBC?
their
Okay.
hour-long news program, but their half-hour-long one comes on at 7 o'clock Central Time, uh, during the school year, right,
Okay.
during standard time. And so that's what we get, because the bus, she's got to walk out the door for the bus at 7:25. So breakfast is on at 7. The news
Yeah.
comes on, and that portion of our day, as we're eating and tidying and doing the packing up or whatever, is spent listening to the world's news. She has questions. She pays attention to some of it. I mean, it's as much habit building as it is like um, information sending. She tunes a lot of it out. Uh, we've talked pretty openly about both the war in Ukraine and what's going on in Gaza right now. Um,
Uh-huh.
I mean, in a way to, instill a sense of moral duty in the world, um, and what that looks like and how it's applied. And, The details of these conflicts are, given to her with nuance, with historical context, and she absorbs some of it, and I'm sure some of it doesn't stick. But the sense of
Uh-huh.
there is a bigger picture to everything that's going on. Um, our role within the community is emphasized. We talk about the church, talk about my relationship with Pastor Jason with her, all the reasons why I go, the reasons why
Uh-huh.
other people go, what, Christianity means to a lot of people, what it means to me. Um, they're just very open, honest conversations with her about all of it.
That's awesome. I mean, I really think that if you can get to a point where you're open with your children as much as you can be, there's probably always going to be some things that, if we want to, either
Age
we're not
appropriate
comfortable
stuff, right?
talking
Like,
about
I mean, it's
or age appropriate. Yeah. Or maybe what
sure.
I feel comfortable talking about. There's just going to be some things, and that's fine. We don't have
Well,
to
I mean,
share
it's
everything.
strange. It's just
Uh,
it's a much
but
different
you
dynamic
know,
for me, being a single parent, right? A single father,
uh-huh,
parenting, one only daughter, in an environment that is like very often forced us to be rather insular. So it's a lot of um,
uh-huh,
digging in with each other, through our bonding process, through the dynamic. It is a very, one-on-one thing. Like when we're together, it's just the two of us. There isn't
yeah.
mom and dad or any other siblings or, competition for attention, for resources, for whatever. It's just here we are. Um, so I think that aids in a lot of that process, like the kind of like special dynamic that gets built through that.
You're just setting her up for a phone call from the school to like, well,
Oh,
she
sure.
corrected the teacher,
The
and probably
happiest
was
days of my
right.
life, right? Like, I,
Yeah, yeah.
there are
You
plenty of
just,
moments
I
where I
can't
felt
wait.
plenty proud of what I just watched her do. But receiving that phone call,
Yeah,
guaranteed
yeah.
top five, right now, like years before it's even happened. And of course, I'm setting it up for that. But it's
Yeah.
it's strange, because
Isn't that what we want? Don't we want our
yes,
kids to be able to think?
I want my child to be able to think. I mean, I can only speak for myself here. Yes, that is what I want. That's what I
Yeah.
want.
Well, I
I
do.
want her to
I mean,
think. I
I
want her
want
to
my
run. I
kids to
want her to
think. I
play. I
want
want,
them
you know what I
to.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to neglect a single
Yeah.
aspect of selfhood in her development, especially at this early age. I mean, like peak brain development is up to like 11 years
Yeah.
old or whatever. And so like in this time, like as all of that is forming, I mean, within brain development, comes along muscle memory, so with all her physical actions, like,
Mhm.
her brain is building itself upon its ability to remember those movements, to understand its balance of itself. uh yeah, nutrition, all that stuff, just like wow.
Mhm.
um
Oh, yeah.
it's something I nerd out on a lot, man. Child rearing, it's just
Yeah.
uh such a joy filled process. But yeah, I want her to be able to think.
I I I wrestle with feeling
Mhm.
I'm never doing enough, or doing it wrong, and then at the same time being completely blown away by what I see in my children and what they're capable of doing, and how sometimes they rattle off some word. I'm like, how the fuck do you know that word? I didn't know that word at that age. It's just like, well, and then I think about it, and then I'm like, oh, it probably came from either me or her mom. We said something, and then they learned how to use it properly in context, and then now it's just part of their vocabulary. But it's fascinating, and it's kind of a little scary. And I realize I'm going to be outdated
It
pretty
just reminds
soon.
me of a funny story. I
If
was
not already.
my
So.
former stepdaughter's first t-ball coach. And as like the kids were coming in from the field, they were playing catch with each other, warming up before practice or whatever. They were all coming in, and I told them to deposit the balls in the bucket. And my ex-wife is in, she's like, they don't know what
Uh-huh.
deposit means. And I'm like, well, how else are they supposed to learn? Like, use these words for them. Like, very clearly, as I say, deposit the ball in the bucket, as I'm pointing to the bucket and they have a ball in their hands, they've just figured out the meaning
Yeah.
of deposit, put a thing in somewhere. Uh,
Right.
that's, yeah,
Right. Put it
they
in
had enough
there.
context
Yeah.
to learn the definition.
Well, and the test was they didn't walk. they didn't walk over
or
and just kick the
walk,
bucket
still hold on
over
to the
and
ball
say,
as
"I
they
hate
walk
you."
into the
You know, it's
dugout.
like,
It's like, yeah, they understood. They deposited the balls in the
yeah,
bucket. We can
yeah,
teach kids words. Like, it's cool. It's okay to do that.
yeah, yeah. That's funny. Yeah. Um, I think it's I think your approach is really interesting to pull and to read and to immerse yourself and to continue to do that and then to turn around and say, obviously I'm going to work really hard to have a connection
Yeah, that was the first
with my
step.
kid and then to share um, and then to share my life experiences with you. And then at the same time, I mean, if you're a good parent, I think you have to kind of get out of the way of the kids at
Sure.
some point. There was this Stephen Colbert clip that I saw where he said, somebody asked him something about being a parent or something along that nature. And he said, I just learned that I had to get out of the way of letting my kid become, what they are going to be, because it's like if you try to conform, try to shape them into something else, it's just not going to work. They're their own person. They're going to study the world and they're going to find their own
Yeah.
meaning and find their
I
own
don't think I don't
beliefs.
think we're quite at that age yet. You
And
know, I
if
mean,
you
at
just
7 years old, just about 8. I mean, we're beginning that process. I had a conversation about this the other day, where it's like there's no one single point where they become autonomous individuals. You know, I mean, it is a constant process of peeling away from you bit by bit by bit by bit. You know, I mean, starting with the
yeah.
actual process of birth,
Mhm.
being like physically separated, to then like, no longer needing to
Yeah.
breastfeed, to then like no longer needing you to put the fork in their mouth, to then them no longer needing you to, change their diapers, to, and it is just this process of
Mm.
individuation. But yeah, I think like I've never subscribed to like any of those like parenting styles, right? That like come and go. But I think the one that I've come across
Yeah.
that, sorry about the helicopter there, the one that I've come across that does the best job of explaining how I approach it is scaffold parenting, where, I mean, for me, I'm essentially setting parameters, right? This is as low as I'll let her fall. This is as high as I'll let her
Okay.
rise. And then, within that range, she'll drive the outcomes. Um, and maybe high and low isn't
Hmm.
like the best description,
Okay.
maybe more laterally. Like this is as far to the left
Yeah.
as I'll let her go, as far to the right I'll let her go, and let her just kind of drive the outcomes from
Hmm.
there. But certainly the bond came first. Um, building that
Yeah.
first
Oh yeah.
is what has opened up the dynamic where this sort of stuff can be shared and can be applied practically.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, creating an environment and a dynamic where things can be shared rather than saying you can't do something. I think, switching the focus on what can
Yeah,
be done rather than what
yeah.
can't. I like that. That's a
Thank you.
good approach. My wife and I were talking last night about how we would deal with the kids whenever they're all gone, and she was like, "Oh, I would obsessively let them know." That well, because she was complaining about I wish I had a better relationship with she was complaining about her
And
relationship with her
and those
parents
negative aspects drive
because
so
it's
much of our
not
parenting,
great.
right? Like you're 100%, like almost
Yeah.
always you are doing either the exact opposite of what your parents did out of rebellion, or like the exact same thing
Mhm.
as them without critical analysis. It is like so often one of those two things. Like, I didn't have a close relationship with my mother, so I'm going to
Yeah.
force a close relationship on, my child. And it doesn't work,
Right.
and my
Yeah.
father my
Yeah. And
father didn't let me sit on that
she asked
chair, and
me,
so
she
I'm
was
not going to
like,
let her sit on my chair, and that approach doesn't work either.
right.
uh
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's where we were going because she said, I wish that I had a relationship with my
mm,
parents like you did with yours because I had a good relationship with my parents. And I was like, well, I mean, I personally think that's it's not her fault. But if
no,
she wants
that's a
that,
totally natural
my
desire.
my opinion is you're probably going to have to be the driver because they're not going to be the driver to do that. But I don't think she has it in her, and I don't blame her for not wanting to be the driver about something that should come from your parents.
Depends.
But
How old is she?
does that make sense? Like, she's
No,
in
not
her
your wife, the
40s, late
child. Like
40s.
the
Oh,
the one she's trying to like.
well,
What? You 3 kids?
we have
Okay.
3 kids. Yeah, so she was just in general talking about like the relationship with the
Yeah.
kids when they move out, and so she was, because she just really feels
Mm,
cheated with her parents, and I'm that's fine because I
mm.
think that she's right. Whereas me, I'm like, I don't want to smother them. I'll probably call like once
Yeah.
a week or something, and check in, make sure things are cool, but they're always welcome, and I've told them, I'm like, listen, if you ever get into trouble, just come home. Like, it's fine, like, I mean, none of them's left the house yet, but I'm like, that's the future. Like, if something happens, just call me, call your mom. We're not going to let you
Right.
flounder and fail. We're not going to hold your hand for every single little thing either, because you have to learn how to go through life without us. But at the same time, as long as we're alive,
It's nice to have these
we'll be there
ideals
for you. I
before
think
the rubber
that's,
actually hits the road, though. It's
yeah. Oh, definitely.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I think the running joke between my daughter and I is,
Uh,
when she goes off to college, that I'm going to go back to being unhoused or transient, live in a van, like just get back to moving. Um,
uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
my assumption is that like I'll go to wherever she is as frequently as she wants me to go there. Um, and then the time that she doesn't want
Yeah.
me there, I'll go somewhere else, wherever.
Yeah. Were you
I
unhoused at one
just
point?
so I think the my first, I guess, experience living on the road, I was I think just 20. Let's see. 9/11 happened in 2001, right? Yeah. So then I turned
Uh-huh.
20 a couple months after that summer, right? The summer that I was 20, I hitchhiked from New Jersey out to California. Um, Flew back home for a
Okay.
death in the family. Actually, the wife of the pastor, the from my childhood pastor, when his wife passed, like that was a big deal for my family. I flew home from California for that funeral. Uh, Lupus, another one of the the funerals that my father and I had to go to together. Um, and then the following spring, flew overseas to Europe, backpacked around Europe, made my way, got a flight from there over to Alaska, spent some time there, hitchhiked back down to New Jersey again, eventually, a few smaller trips, and then eventually driving a tractor trailer over the road, like, living in a truck. Um,
Yeah, so like you could call that
uh,
unhoused technically based upon stupid US laws about like, oh, you don't have a permanent physical address somewhere, but I mean, really it just sounds like to me you were
yeah,
out adventuring
technically
and
unhoused. I
seeing the
mean,
world. I mean, yeah.
at times I had various degrees of places to go back to. There were some times where it was like, there's not, the address on my
Yeah,
license is just my friend's house. That's it. And,
right.
we'll sleep in hotels, we'll sleep with friends, we'll sleep in wherever. Uh, yeah, to various degrees. Was it like unhoused or just simply
Mhm.
traveling?
Right. Well, that
Yeah,
sounds
I'm ready
nice
to
to
go
me. I
back
mean,
to it. I'm ready for her to go off to college
like,
and for me to get a
yeah.
van and a dog to live in with
I
it
mean,
and spend most of my time sitting by a river. I'm ready for that phase of life.
I I often float the idea of like, there's enough equity in the house. We could just get one of those big RVs like the old people down the street have. Because that's what they do. They go wintertime, they just drive around and they go warmer places. And I'm like, yeah, I could totally
Yeah,
do that. I have
it's
no
a
problem with that.
it's a fun life. I mean, what
So
ruined
sound,
trucking for me was
sounds good
just
to me.
not having access to running water or decent food. Um, the
Yeah.
trucks. I mean, these days they're equipped with so much stuff: satellite TV, air conditioning when it's not running, fridges,
Mhm.
whatever. We haven't started equipping them with running water, and you can only park them in certain places.
No, but
Your access to food is very frequently like the same handful of fast food chains and truck stops. Uh,
yeah. Yeah, lots of truck stops with
How many,
showers
how many mornings I've
maybe
spent
if you're
door
lucky,
after
a
door
place
after
to
door just trying to
wash your
find a
clothes.
clean seat to sit on. It's annoying. It gets old. It gets old.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Your 20s, it's
yeah,
fine. My 20s trucking, it was
yeah.
like cat and mouse with the
Maybe
police
I
all the
just need to.
time. I never logged a single honest day. Got away with absolutely everything I could to push that truck as far and as hard as I possibly could, and get away with like not being caught by the state troopers wherever I happened to be at the time. It was fun. That was an adventure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh, like in my mid to late 30s, like
it,
just
it
wanting a
sounds.
shower and a quiet place to sleep. Like, no, it's not. This isn't fun anymore.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean,
Mm,
you did your thing for a while, and then you
yeah.
found out that it no longer served
Yeah.
you, and then you went on to
No.
something else. Nothing wrong with that.
Sounds like science.
So, well, dude, yeah, yeah, this has been a really wonderful conversation, and frankly, I'm not lying whenever I say you have inspired me to want to go out and
I would definitely go to that
check
mosque.
out just to be an observer and like I don't know if I have to walk in and sign
Mhm.
something and be like, listen, I'm not here to cause trouble. I really am just listening. Um, yeah, and maybe I could do a whole show about
You
that.
could find your next,
About not
guest.
I mean
I don't know.
episode
I guess it
about
depends on where you want it to go.
uh,
And I guess, right. It like strictly started off as like, recovering Christians having left Christianity. But I see like as more episodes have come out,
mhm.
you've like broadened your description of what you want the show to be. I think there's a lot of space for that for you. Uh,
I anticipated some level
mm,
of change because nothing stays it just never does. But ultimately, like at first, I thought, well, I would like to hear stories of people who left faith and were
yeah.
agnostic or atheist. Okay, that's cool. But then I realized that there are other aspects of people's life where they do ask themselves some questions that totally jolt things that they have previously believed. Um, and that's why I have some topics that I just need to find the right person to talk to about, like
Huh.
someone transgender. That would be a fantastic conversation because I sure as fuck guarantee you that they ask a lot of questions, where they had to like really question things that were around them in their environment, maybe what they were taught, maybe or maybe not things about religious belief popped into that discussion as well. But that would be a great discussion, I think. And then, talking about going
Yeah.
deep into religious trauma. You and I think we kind of, um, for the most part, aren't
I
too
don't consider
scarred
myself scarred by the church at all. And
by.
I consider myself fortunate because of it. I think the fact that there aren't
Yeah.
those sort of wounds that need to be examined first, that, despite moving past the faith in heaven or hell or, an anthropomorphized God, um, that allows me to still approach the ethics of it and the communal good of these structures.
Mhm.
I think in ways that I would be much more susceptible to
Yeah.
rejecting and joining the crowd of like, the church is evil, the church is bad, this is all the horrible stuff they've done over the years, and not to like whitewash over any of
Yeah.
that. um but I don't think I don't think the baby needs to be thrown out with the bathwater. And I think I'm able to take that approach because there isn't, that sort of deep primary wound associated with it.
Yeah. Well, one of the earlier podcasts that I had was a former minister,
Uh-huh.
and there was a few things that he was like, "That's a
Oh, wow.
little triggering for me," And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I'm glad I don't have that." There's a YouTuber that I love to watch, and one of the things that he talks about that he misses is
Hmm.
the singing from church. He's an atheist. He's definitely hardcore atheist in the sense that he has no belief because he cannot find anything that points
Yeah.
to evidence for it. Where he was a former Christian, like deep, deep into it. He's Mennonite, and
Yeah. Singing would be a big part.
yet
Uh,
he misses the singing. And then like he played a clip, and I'm like, oh yeah,
I mean,
that
it's
is a
probably
good
why music
song,
plays such a big role in my life.
So
My father was a pianist and a flutist and a
yeah,
guitarist. Those Sunday mornings where he was, walking with the pastor, either before or after waiting for him, or before service. We spent just he and I in the chapel, and him playing the
Hmm.
piano, and just nothing but the sound of his piano playing filling the
Yeah.
space. Um, and he was great at it. Uh, and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the church played a large role in musical development, and probably a big part of why it's such an important thing to me now, for sure.
Sounds like it. Yeah. And music's universal, so you can't really go wrong. We should just start a religion just to only focused
I
on
just got
music.
done visiting my cousin, my father's sister's son, who I have a particularly strong relationship with, and who our daughters have a particularly strong relationship with each other. But in their kitchen, like magnet, like stuck to their dry erase calendar, was the pamphlet from my father's funeral, and on the back of it was the lyrics to, I don't know, am I drawing a blank on the song now? I'll Fly Away. And just like looking at those lyrics and then hearing the
Hmm.
song play in my head, I was like, all right, well, here comes some of that grief bubbling up. I mean, it happens with it happens with direct triggers now, whereas, in the immediate aftermath, it was, no direct triggers.
Right.
Um, Something leads to it, and it's never
Yeah.
overwhelming, and it comes, and the tears well up for a second, and it goes. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where it's.
It's
Yeah,
fascinating, isn't it? Grief.
yeah.
Oh my. Well, dude,
Thanks for
thank
having
you
me,
so
man.
much
You
for
feel,
chatting with me today.
you got
Like,
enough
this is
questions
great.
asked? You're
Yeah.
satisfied with the product here?
I'm I'm asking questions about people that ask
There we
questions. So
go.
yeah, I'm good. Yeah. And I'll probably have more, and that's fine. Because whenever I run out of questions to ask, then I'm
Yeah,
probably dead. So that's a I
yeah.
mean, that's just how it's gonna be. So I'm going to keep asking some questions. I'm not trying to like just say the name over and over again for SEO purposes,
All right.
but but the reality of it is that
Funny.
I am I'm like you, curious about things. I don't shy away from learning about things. That's when my wife and I went on a date. Our anniversary was last Saturday, and I every once in a while I'll pull out. I go to this website that I have bookmarked that you can ask date questions. Because it's kind of hard to think of them on your own. But if you have some presented for you, you just rattle them off. And one of them was, uh, what do you like most about me? And so like I asked her, and she told me, or I well, she asked me and I told her, and vice versa. And then she said, well, I really like how you really go in real deep about things that you're interested in, to where at the, you get to the point where uh, you feel like you're really informed, more so than me, where she said, I learn enough to, satisfy my curiosity and then I move on, And so I'm like, oh, well, thanks. That means it meant something to me that she, um, saw that in me. And I can definitely hear that
Yeah.
in you. So
I feel like I've hit a more
absolutely.
settled
So
phase
keep that up,
recently.
man.
Yeah, there's just
Yeah.
not that
Did
there's nothing else
nothing
to
else to learn?
learn,
No,
but
just kidding.
just that just more secure in a lot of it, I would say. That it's like, and I think
Yeah.
really, I think the security comes from a comfort of not knowing, right? Like, we talked about how like we don't know what
Yeah.
consciousness is.
Right.
So like I'm not,
Yeah.
there are fewer places where I can have my opinion changed because my opinion is rooted in we don't know. I don't know. And just an acceptance of that ignorance of uh mystery, if that's the way you choose to frame it. A lot of
Mhm.
that comes down to framing.
Yeah.
And so, if new evidence comes up, I'll adjust to the evidence. But otherwise, it's just it's a solid comfort in not knowing.
See, you said mystery. That reminds me of whenever I was younger, that we didn't have HBO, but I knew how to dial in the VCR so that way I could get the right channels. It came in a little staticky, but I could still see them. And I remember it was either HBO or Cinemax that they had some show where like this guy was, it was set back in like early. I don't know, or I mean, early first century, and he was going around trying to figure out if the Bible story was true, and like the last scene, he gets to this point, he's having some sort of interaction, and the guy pulls a knife, and he just tells him, "Thrust me into the mystery." Like he just kind of accepts that, like, the only way
Is
I'm going to
death.
know for
Yeah.
sure is if,
And even then
was
we don't,
death.
again, we
Yeah,
don't know
and then
if
I guess
death
I'll know.
brings understanding. We don't know. There's no way.
I hope
I
it
don't
just
I
brings a
don't
really
know.
long nap.
No, just maximize your time now. Do what you can now, right? Like there's
I
no
know,
knowing.
right? I mean, yeah, uh, but I don't know. Living
Yeah.
forever sounds terrible. It really does. It
Yeah.
sounds more like hell than
We
heaven,
had that
if you ask
conversation over
me. But
breakfast recently. Like,
what do
I
I
don't want
know?
to live to 100, baby. Like, I don't, you know, if I live long enough to see you off into adulthood and, maybe get some grandkids, then after that, I'm fine. It's good.
Yeah, my football
All
number
right.
was 77 in high school. And not that I was good at football, but that was my number. And so I'd be cool if I made it to that age. I mean, in my head, that's the kind of logic that I have around it, though. I have no real
I
reason
mean,
other than,
77
like,
is
well,
essentially
I don't know.
another, 33 years for me. I would put my daughter at 40 and I would be totally happy with that. I would be totally happy dying
Yeah,
with
I'd
my
be
daughter
okay.
being 40 years old. Um, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, none of us want to leave, and we don't especially want to think of our kids not having parents, but
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is a reality. It's going to
There's
happen.
only one
So,
other option,
you know,
and that is, well, losing a
what's
child.
the other option?
I mean, you want to talk about
Oh,
like grief.
oh,
Um, yeah,
yeah,
one of my childhood best
no doubt.
friends died of
I don't,
leukemia when he was 19 years old. Um, and his parents were never the
yeah,
same. Never the same.
never the same. Yeah,
Well, all right, I'm gonna let you
weird,
go. I guess, right?
weird and sad, just hard to process.
I don't want to. Yeah, it really
No,
has
it's
been.
been great. Thanks. And if you come up with some more
All
stuff
right,
you want to talk
excellent.
about, you know how to reach me.
All right, we'll talk to you
All
soon.
right.